We're out here at Lake Pontchartrain fishing the Causeway. I'm here with Zack Liberto. Zack, this Causeway has been an enigma for a while now. I want to say 3 or 4 years. It's really gone downhill as far as catching speckled trout. Now there's still redfish here. You can still catch some sheepshead and maybe even some striped bass. I hear some striped bass being caught, but as far as speckled trout, man, this used to be the leader as far as mule trout. Coming out here, jigging these pilings. We're out here, it's May. We're gonna give this another shot. What's our plan for today?
So the plan today is really gonna be to stick and move. When you fish the Causeway, a lot of times it's real particular of a bite. You have to figure out what angle the fish want it at, what color, how they want to retrieve. So we're gonna stick and move, cover some water. Once we get bit, pay really good attention to where that bite came from. Was it off the piling? Was it right on the piling? What was the angle? What was the color? And then you just try to duplicate that at every set of pilings and pick up fish that way. But it's a beautiful morning, May 11th out here. The water isn't too bad. It's got a little chalk to it, but it isn't too bad. Like Mr. Keith said, it's a beautiful morning. We'll see if we can get on a couple trout this morning.
Yeah. So we're gonna be using plastics. Water's not moving that much. Probably get away with a 3/8 ounce jig head. And typical Causeway fishing, like you said, just covering a lot of water and honing in on where we catch those fish, and hopefully they're grouped up there, and hopefully they're big.
That's right.
Well, let's go get them, Zack. First fish of the day. Oh, flounder. Trying to see a little bit more flounder come back. That's good. Especially up here at the Causeway. Oh, that's a sight for surprise, huh?
Pretty fish.
There we go. That's the Causeway. How's that feel, Zack?
Feels great.
Unbelievable. That's a nice size fish, too. Let's help.
Let's check them out. It's a weird bite on the back side of this piling. You just gotta let it hit the bottom and just kind of drag it. It's not your typical jig. Just kind of picking it up and you just feel them load up on it. It's a real weird bite.
All right, well, let's hone in on them further. Oh man, another one.
A little
What's
too quick.
going on? Are you jigging for speckled here? Or you're jigging right down the piling.
Speckled. Yeah, so I'll show it to you. It's
So back to back.
back to back.
Just put the jig down.
On the back side of this piling, you just let your bait hit the bottom. Roll your wrist, get a lot of slack in your line. And once your line falls and that bait's on the bottom, so you just barely picking it up like that. And you'll feel them. Doo-doo.
All right, so we're picking up here. Picked up about 4 fish, about 6 feet off of the concrete pilings. Zack, we're picking up now. What's your plan here?
So we're gonna bounce out past the drawbridge right here. Like Keith said, we caught a few fish back here. It's a weird bite. It's enough to keep you interested, but not enough to really load the boat. So we're gonna bounce about another half a mile out and see if the bite's a little more consistent. If not, we know we can always come back and hit that
here
same
and
shrimp.
loop back and do the same thing we were doing.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go. Zack, we're going to run through exactly what you're doing here. You can see how far off the bridge we are. Now, typically we focus on these pilings, trying to be as close as possible, if not in between, and usually that pays off. But the Causeway, it seems like there's always a pattern.
Right.
And the pattern today is casting along this outside piling right here.
Right here. It's a really weird bite. So letting your bait fall all the way to the bottom, casting right at that outside piling. and then just kind of picking your rod tip up and dragging it. And a lot of these fish are coming 15, 10 feet off the bridge. And it's a little frustrating, but you got to adapt to what the fish want. So hopefully we can replicate that for you real quick.
Yeah, so far we haven't picked up on a stack of fish. They've definitely been spread out, 1 or 2 per pilot. Hopefully we come across them pretty thick. If not, we'll just work our way to a limit here for the day. That might be a red.
Shrimp cocktail on a 3/8 ounce death grip jig head. And we're starting to pick away at a few fish.
Open them up, Joe. Good size.
What side?
Good size. Yeah.
I don't know, but it's not a trout unless I foul hooked him. I did.
Yeah, you did foul hook him. Look at that.
Can't catch him in the mouth, snag him.
Good job.
Pretty fish.
Yeah. Slowly but surely, Zack.
Slowly but surely.
Oh, man. Solid Causeway trout, Zack. Where you been?
They're back. That's all that matters.
Just like that, they're back. So Zack, we're seeing some very clean water. We've moved about a half mile from the North Shore, and this is the cleanest water we've seen all day. We're going to start fishing here before we close out our trip, and talk a little bit about what you're seeing as far as water clarity and how it lines up to what you've seen throughout the year.
Yeah, so this is usually a wintertime pattern. The cleaner water will be closer to the North Shore with all the north winds. It looks a lot like that right now, even though it's May. I mean, you can see my bait. A good foot down, 1.5 foot down. Really clean water. A lot of bait off the bridge, a lot of bait on the bridge, a lot of pogies, a lot of glass minnows. So it looks almost like a wintertime pattern, but hopefully we'll be able to stick a few out here the next couple of minutes.
All right, we're gonna get this camera underwater so we can just actually see the real clarity all the way down so we can see how far it goes. Back up. All right, bring it closer. Bring it farther away. All right, Zack, finishing up the day at the Causeway. How good does this feel to have these fish on our hands right now in the box after fishing the Causeway? It's been years. I want to say that we've caught fish like this. We've picked up a few trolling here and there throughout the years, but to jig the Causeway for speckled trout in May, especially May is typically a month we see these fish move out to Lake Bourne, off the bridges, off the Causeway, off the trestles. It's just starting to warm up. We're starting to see 90s, but these fish are still here.
Yep.
And we caught fish today, but what I take out of this is that the Causeway, you know, we think the Causeway is, oh, it's over for the Causeway. So these speckled trout, they're poking their nose in here, and if the conditions are good, the water is great like we've seen today, the bait fish are here, they'll turn the Causeway on like it's nothing. So absolutely. The fish are back. Talk a little bit about what's coming up now. What's your thoughts on fall?
Yeah, so like you said, it feels amazing to catch fish jigging the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway. I've waited so long to say that. and I can finally say it. But yeah, like you said, I mean, these fish are poking their nose in here. You're 100% right. It's not something that you can totally write off. And looking forward, with no spillway last year, no spillway this year, I think it's setting up for a perfect fall run in Lake Pontchartrain, both in Slidell and over on this side of the lake on the Causeway. I think the salinity, the cooler temperatures in the fall, everything's setting up to be a beautiful year for trout fishing on the North Shore of Lake Pontchartrain.
Now let's talk a little bit about the technique, because it was very awkward for us to have to drag this bait. Not only drag the bait, and we didn't get to jig, but 6 feet off of the outer piling. It just felt awkward. We were so ingrained in us to hit the concrete with the jig head, you know, and to just cast off like that, it really was something. But that's where they were. Right. It was obvious. I don't know if we caught one fish in between the pilings.
No, not one.
All outside.
Yeah, and it's painful. It's painful to fish that way, but you got to give the fish what they want, obviously. And I think it's really just a byproduct of the water temperature heating up. The fish are a little less active. That slower retrieval on the bottom almost even aggravates them into biting. You almost get a reaction bite, because when you think about it, a shrimp or a bait fish, they do dig into the bottom, and they even leave like a bubble trail. So a lot of times I feel like that's what that jig head's doing, just digging right there into the bottom, and then they're just coming up and grabbing it from the bottom.
Well, any which way, it's good to have these fish right here. We're going to go back and clean them up, have a nice fish fry.
Right.
Unbelievable day. Thanks for bringing me out, Zach, and always enjoy fishing with you. What did we catch them on?
Matrix shad.
Matrix shad.
Shrimp cocktail, a couple different colors. Shrimp cocktail, I think you were throwing the
lemon head.
Lemon head,
which is odd for May. We usually say lemon head for the murky water, but for some reason, you know, they kicked off on that, and I'm not going to change. If I'm catching speckled trout at the Causeway, I'm not changing anything.
It's not broke, don't fix it. Yeah.
Amazing day, guys. Still got a few more weeks left. Probably this speckled trout bite here at the Causeway, but hey, they're out here. Got there. Speckled trout. Oh, man. Solid Causeway trout, Zach. Where you been?
They're back. That's all that matters.
Just like that, they're back.